So it's so much better to, rather than go, oh, I think it might be nice to buy at auction, they seem to be cheap. You've really got to understand the implications. And this is why I'm so excited that Joy's offering this service, because it really ensures that people can really start to really educate themselves a bit more. And on top of that, what I think is, you know, really special about you, Joy, is you are an investor yourself. So there's loads of conveyancers out there, but you really understand the ins and outs of what is a good deal, what is not, and all of those things. So, you know, from your perspective as an investor as well, I mean, do you approach evaluating properties for auction versus perhaps traditional purchases? Do you evaluate them differently?
No, I would be just as thorough on an auction as I would in an ordinary purchase. My concern generally with auctions is about the funding, and that people understand that it's, you know, just because a bridge has told you they might give you some money, they're going to want to go and do an evaluation. That's the other thing, you know, we all know how long valuations are taking now. You could get a down valuation on an auction, although that's less likely on an auction to get a down valuation, because because it's been on the market and it's been bid for. So the issue, you know, so you can argue there's that it is the market value, because that's the best price it would fetch at auction. And that's a harder one. I've never seen a down valuation on an auction property, but there's always a first time. But there's also the queue for surveyors and valuers. So an auction I was acting for a client selling recently, the valuer didn't come out until 2 days before the auction was due to complete. So I had to serve a notice to complete, obviously.
Yeah.
And it just, there was just no way that he was ever going to complete on time. I knew that from day one, but that's a different story. But it's sometimes, you know, that because you know the questions that are asked of you, and you go, you know, and there are bargains to be had in auctions. All those bad things that are said, you know. I spent some of my career working for the local authority, and we used to auction the old people's. So I worked for the department, or I worked for the legal department, and we'd be seconded to work for people who were, where old folk had been gone into a home and they had no family, and we'd have to work on their house. They'd have to sell their house and things, and they'd have taken deputyship over it, and that would never be sold without an auction. There'd never be a pre-auction interest. There'd never be a pre-auction offer, and it would never be accepted. There would often be them, but they would never be accepted. If the local authority are selling, they'll never accept, because they're under duty to get the best price. So the valuation there is, you know, is not likely to be down. But
sorry.
The lender might decide they don't want to lend on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this, I mean, do you feel that kind of the landscape has changed a little bit? So obviously for me, my comprehension of auctions was that they were always some kind of problem property, or, you know, an absolute desperation that it really needs to go quickly. But then we did have a sort of a period, didn't we, sort of just post the sort of pandemic time, where, you know, actually auction properties were getting higher than the open market at some stage. Now, I think all of that has definitely calmed down now.
Yeah.
But do you still think that generally there might be some kind of problem and they're trying to sort of chuck it through the auction? Or do you think people are actually turning more and more to putting properties in auction just for the timescales?
So there are 2 or 3 reasons, maybe more, that I would want to find out. So sometimes people will go put them in an auction because they think everybody wants it, which is often not the case.
Oh, I see. So you think rather than having just loads and loads of people fighting for it, that may raise the price because they're all stuck in a room.
Some people, the buyer expectation occasionally is too high, and they think, oh, well, we're going to buy it. We're going to do this. Actually, people really have to want it. Fred Blogs in the street, the man on the Clapham omnibus, whoever you want to call him, he has to really want it to buy at an auction or have the cash. So you're not, if there is competition for it, it's going to be a really special property, and that may be right. I'm not saying it's never, but that's the first one to discount. Why is it in the auction? Is it a really special property? Is there likely to be loads of competition for it? And we have houses like that around here. And I'm sure you do where you live as well, in the sense that if it was in a big plot and somebody wanted it as what I would call their death nest. And there was their death nest. I.e., it's my forever house. I'm never going to move. I'm going to die here. and they're gonna spend lots and lots of money doing it up. You can't compete with that. And if that's that in that thing, then I'd say leave it. The next one is that they want certainty. They don't. It's the second most stressful thing in your life is moving house, and I just want certainty. I just want them to, and it's an empty house stood there, and I just want to get rid of it. I don't want anything to do with it, and there's nothing wrong with the title. They're just tired, or just don't want to go through the hassle. The third reason is that there's something wrong with the title.
Okay.
And stick it in an auction, get rid of it quickly, and nobody will notice.
So what is there an example of what might be wrong with it that you've seen and experienced?
Yeah. So I had somebody once who had bought, he got really antsy with me because he bought this plot of land, and I'd bought it, and I'd reported to him and told him everything. And there was a pipe through the middle of this land, and half the plot said you couldn't build over this pipe, but the other half didn't. So I thought, well, it wouldn't make any difference because they can't enforce it on the whole plot. And I'd said that to him, but he'd then gone and said to somebody else, I've been told to put it in an auction to get rid of it quickly. And I said, you could do that, yeah, but how's this going to happen? I told you half of it you can and half of it you can't without the consent, and they're not going to give me consent to build on it. So something like that, where the whole pipe is within the property, you'd stick it in quickly and get rid of it, because you wouldn't want to divert a drain, maybe, or a gas main. That's another really good one. You've got you can't build for a certain amount of meterage either side of a gas main, and it runs through the middle of the plot, building plot. So be careful of that. But the main reason, and the most effective ones, are there's no rights of way.
Right.
It's like we looked at an auction pack. I think you were there in Auction Club the other week, where the property was a terrace built end onto the road, and there were no rights of way to get to the property from the main road. So if a property doesn't isn't right on the road, the entrance to the property, you've got to make sure you've got rights of way over the land to get there. And it's no good saying one of the favourite ones is they go, oh, there's a right of way because I can see it. It's a footpath that you've walked over. It's not a legal right of way. Yes, it might be there because of long use, but it might not be as well. So that's a really good one. There's no rights of way, can't get to it, it's landlocked. And I could write you an essay on the ways you could get your rights of way, and it's probably not it's probably not unsolvable, but they've probably got fed up with people going, there's no rights of way, so let's stick it in an auction and get rid of it. The favourite to put in an auction to get rid of is a defective lease. And that is a whole different story. We're not going to get.
So do you mean like a commercial lease there? Is that what are we looking
well, it could be a commercial lease, but most commercial leases are easily solvable. The residential leases that go in are not usually easily solvable. So one of the things that people will do is put in residential leases where the freeholder is absent and there is no management company. The building is very likely to be uninsured.
Oh.
Well, nobody can insure it.
Yeah.
So if there isn't a management company and there isn't a freeholder, the freeholder each person can't insure their individual flat because mortgage companies, because lenders don't like that. So that's out. Short leases will go in auction sometimes. Properties with defective rent review clauses may go in auction sometimes. They have to be ones with bankrupt, where you're bankrupt and your lease is forfeited, that could go in. I imagine now, and I haven't seen one lately, but I would be telling clients to do that if you've got huge ground rents, because lenders aren't lending on certain ground rents now. That would go in. There was another one. Just general where the leasehold isn't working, i.e. there's a rubbish management company, there are problems there. They just want rid of it because they're just getting to the end of their tether. So that would be a good reason to put it in.
So we have talked a little bit doom and gloom here, which is really important, obviously. And the reason we're doing that is we want to make sure that people, purchase with the full knowledge of what they're jumping into, what are the solutions. And that's what we do. And that's what Joy and I spend hours chatting about. How can we solve this problem?
Yes.
And that's how, for us, as what we would define as more professional property investors, where we find problems and we're able to solve them. So with that in mind, do you kind of still think that property auctions are a viable strategy for investors?
I absolutely do, especially if you've got the funding, or you can negotiate a longer time. So if you go to the auctioneer, you can say, look, I'd love to do this, I'd love to buy it, but I can't complete in that time scale. Can I have a bit longer?
Yeah.
Most people will often do that. I did that myself with property that we had to get rid of because some issues in lockdown. And he said, can I have 2 months instead of 1? And I said, if you pay me that extra bit, yes. And so we got rid of the property that way. There will be, so if you can make it longer, yes. If you've got JV partners, or you've got the money yourself, then yeah, as long as the money's in the account and you can do it, it's a great way to make money. Especially now, I think our local auction only sold, I think it was 40-something% of the lots this week.
Wow.
whereas they've been up. And one of the things they do is prior if nobody's registered to bid.
Just so that it doesn't look as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were lots withdrawn prior as well. So, in fact, one that we were looking at last week was withdrawn prior to the auction. And so that's a great, but ultimately, you know, never discount the ones if you've bid and not got it. Speaking to the auctioneer afterwards, putting a bid in before. Now, I've already told you who won't take the bids before, i.e. local authorities.
Yeah.
Anybody under a duty to get the best price will not take a bid prior to auction. But everybody else may well do that. You may be able to get some of the constructive things. People may accept options and things, particularly after the auction, if it's been through a couple of times and it hasn't sold. That may be a no or low money down strategy. And there are just some cracking properties. If you're title splitting and you can see the potential, you know, most people don't want great big houses now. They don't want great big gardens. If there are great big houses with great big gardens in an auction, how can you make it work for you?
Love it.
How can you fund it? And that's the way forward.
And this is very serendipitous because I am literally, after our conversation, going to be packing up, and at 2:30 I am looking at an auction property, and I don't look at them so often. I like to go post if they're not selling, then certainly I'm thinking, well, this has got some more opportunities like you've spoken about. But since obviously, I brought you on to talk about your subscription service, the Auction Queen subscription service. It really has opened my eyes, because before I just, me, I'm not one. I can't read like a book like this, and I'm just, oh no. I mean, I'm Audible all the time. I'd have to have all my auction packs on Audible with a little thing that said, ask question here, ask question here, because it's just like a block of words. Oh no, can't be bothered with that. Makes me feel like I'm at uni again. And that was just, so tell people how they can find you, and what this I know you sort of touched on it, but what this Auction Queen Club subscription service looks like.
So Auction Queen Essentials, you can find it by contacting me directly, finding me on Facebook, and I will either send you a link, or the link is on my biography, on my profile on Facebook. So Auction Queen Essentials is just £47 a month, and that gives you a full 2 hours a month with me, and a private Facebook group which you could ask questions in. Auction Queen Standard will give you the same 2 hours, but it'll also give you up to 2 30-minute sessions with me personally, which is £297. And Auction Club Gold, which isn't yet live but will be live later, is to work with me for 3 months, and that's 3,000, and that's and that is working with me, having my WhatsApp support during working hours. I switch my do not disturb on, and that's an hour. That's half an hour a week. But I'm not a clock watcher, which is probably to your benefits rather than mine. But that's half an hour a week with me, and both Auction Club Standard and Auction Club Gold also give you 10% off all your legal fees as well. So
wow,
that's that's it. Unfortunately, I'd like to be able to say I can do that off the stamp duty land tax, but I can't. So always remember the stamp duty land tax, and particularly put it into your auction.
Yeah, amazing.
But certainly, either contact you or myself, and we can you can soon back people to me, and make friends with me on Facebook, and I can certainly let you have the link.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll pop underneath these lives the link that takes you through to Joy's website, and that will give you all of that information. And so, in fact, I've spoken to a number of people, and the feedback has been, Joy, that, you know, again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but people just, you don't know what you don't know. And especially when you're looking at a pack, you know, I've squizzed through, you know, a number of them, and then I've obviously brought them to you, and you're then pointing out things. And I'm like, really? Like, I just did not see that. It just did not crop up as thinking that it may be a problem. And that's where I think that people can, you know, get into trouble when they don't know these things. So yes. An incredible opportunity, and then on top of that, I think you're just so personable, Joy. It's really nice.
Thank you.
And the property investing side as well, you really are looking at it from both sides, whereas just purely
I do try to look at all the bits and pieces that that everybody doesn't think you look at, you know. And one of my things is solicitors will do what you expect them to do, not what you tell them to do. We'll do what you tell them to do, not what you expect them to do. Sorry. And I try and do what you expect me to do. So the auction pack I'm looking at the moment, it backs onto a railway track. Now, the property information form says there is no knotweed, but I know that knotweed was used to bind railway banks up, so I'm going to tell the client that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The British Rail people planted it.
They've got a lot to answer for then.
They planted it to hold the banks together, so there was no landslips.
Wow, I did not know.
So if there's, if there is, you know, and I know that, so why wouldn't I pass that on to a client? That wouldn't necessarily happen with somebody who wasn't a property investor.
Yeah. No, that's just so key. Brilliant, Joy. Well, look, thank you so much for coming and joining us. We really appreciate you sharing that. I'm so thrilled that the Auction Queen subscription club is now live and has been for a while now. It's so valuable. So if anyone is looking to purchase by auction and not only wants, you know, obviously to have their legal pack read, but actually really wants to understand it and really start growing their knowledge, then absolutely Joy is the number one person. I'm not sure there's really anyone out there doing the same. So it's really generous that what she's doing. And I know she absolutely loves doing it too. So Joy, over to you, sort of a last closing words, please.
Just, if you're buying auctions, make sure you got your money in order. I couldn't, if that was anything you leave this with, make sure you've got your money in order.
Amazing. Okay, guys, so I'll be back again next Monday. So do remember to join us. And as I say, do go over and look at Joy's website and and join up. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Bye.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.